I'm Angelo Esposito, CEO of Wisks.ai, and I just want to say thank you all for joining all our terrific guests and conversations this year on the Wisking It All podcast. Just thank you to our listeners. Thank you for sharing your thoughts, your feedback. And as we approach the end of the year, I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. It's been great, and I've been blessed to be able to share so much of this wisdom from all of our great guests with some awesome restaurateurs, bar owners, operators, etc. So what I did with the team is just curated some of my favorite conversations that I think you will find valuable on the podcast this year. And this is your chance to just catch up on some great conversations that maybe you missed. So just thank you once again. Wish you a happy holidays from the Whisk team. And thanks for tuning in to the Wisking It All podcast.
And in 2015, that was practically revolutionary.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'm digging in. I have a skill set that's missing in this industry. I'm going to go help every restaurant and bar I possibly can.
Wow. That's super fascinating. And I think that there's a little lesson there, which sometimes like don't only focus on the things you're not good at, but like double down on the things you are good at, right?
You will see an article coming out from me soon. Okay. My life motto is be awesome at two things and outsource everything else. Mm. And as soon as you're too good at one of them or you don't care anymore, let it go and learn a new and research. Make number two, number one, and get a new number two.
That's awesome. That is good feedback. It's funny. I did this exercise not too long ago. I was actually making a list of the things that kind of like take energy from me and the things that like give me energy. And then like I was adding dollar signs to them, like which ones are like high value, low value, you know? And then it was funny because then as I was doing this exercise, I'm like, man, there's certain things that I really like and are high value, certain things I just like and are not. And you start realizing like you're never going to be good at everything. So to your point is like, how do you step one, just recognize that so you can fill those gaps, right? It's like some people will break their heads and say, okay, I'm not good at, I don't know, Excel. Let me try to become an Excel expert. When the answer is really like, if you're not good at Excel, just find someone who's good at Excel to help you with that part, you know?
Perfect example from the music business, from the restaurant business. And again, I'm a marketer, I have a marketer's perspective, but like when independent restaurant owners say to me, I got to be better at social media, you're going to continue to say that for the next 10 years. No. You need to be better at hiring somebody to do it for you and communicating the values of your brand so you could go back to running the business.
That makes sense. So for restaurateurs listening, what would you say is some of the ways they can maybe take advantage of, marketing efforts? And I know there's probably a million and one things. Marketing is a pretty big umbrella, but maybe from your industry experience, are there a couple nuggets or things you typically see? You go into a venue, you're like, look, day one, these are a couple of things you can start doing right away just to maybe share some wisdom.
Okay. First of all, thank you for asking. Tactical questions are my favorite. Okay. Because everybody's trying to figure out the how-to. I got the how-tos. I'm happy to share them.
Beautiful.
Number one, let's start by changing our thinking. Nobody follows a restaurant on Instagram unless they have eaten there or they plan to eat there, which means followers are actually guests. Which means that organic social media is a retention channel, not an acquisition channel. And so restaurants need to create content that speaks to guests, not to new acquisition. And yes, people who have heard about a restaurant might look at the Instagram before they go there, but they're looking to go there to find out what is the experience. And so if your content talks to guests, it will make that person understand what it's like to be a guest. So myth number one, organic social media will get me new customers. It will not. It is a retention channel. Approach it as such. Also, because the algorithm shows your content to nobody, it's a shitty retention channel because you got to pay for it to work. Okay. So now that we've reset that, here are two things that every restaurant should do that are scalable, affordable, and will drive both will drive both a waterfall of new guests and retained guests. Okay. Number one, 67% of your guests and the traffic to your website should be coming from something that starts with a big G and ends with Oogle. Okay. And if you have not prioritized coming up at the top of near me searches. Number one, get a listings management tool. We use Marquee at my restaurant. I don't recommend any other tool. They're the best in the business. But go get a listings management tool. Put your menu in there, your photos, your hours of operation, everything that's cool about your business into Marquee or whatever listings provider you use, and make sure that information is the same on Google, Bing, Yahoo, Yelp, Foursquare, Facebook, Siri, Apple Maps, Alexa, TripAdvisor. Can you tell I've said this before?
I love that.
When
That's
you
awesome.
do that, you will be optimized for near me searches. Okay. That is simple. Use the software. It'll cost you $100 or less a month, and boom, you're optimized for local search.
Love that.
Oh my God. Wait, marketing works in the background and I don't have to do anything? Yes. that is like the restaurant's dream. And it's like, yes, just turn on a listings management provider. Number one. Okay.
Awesome.
Number one. That will drive you more guests in a scalable, easy, affordable way. Now, let's take the other side of the coin. How do you get those guests that you've spent money to get through the door to come back? Acquisition costs dollars, retention costs pennies. Okay. Here's what you do. Collect every single person's email address you possibly can. And this works if you're McDonald's or the local pizza shop. Okay. This works for all brands. And send out at least a newsletter every other week. Okay. And don't restaurants get in their head like, oh, I've even seen major brands. We don't know what to put in email. Go subscribe to Red Robin and go subscribe to the Capitol Grill. Every single email they send is exactly the same. Logo, a couple of key buttons, a hero image, a two-menu, 2-sentence description, and order now. They are beautiful. You can consume them in 30 seconds and they take zero brain work. Okay. If it works for those two companies, it will work for yours. Okay. Manage your listings, collect emails, and send a bi-weekly newsletter or weekly if you can. If you do that alone, you will outperform your competition.
I love that. And I'm a big fan of getting tactical too, because that's one of the things I love when I listen to podcasts is getting actual like information that I can act on. And so definitely I want to dive a little deeper. So it's great advice. On the collecting emails, what are some ways, again, I'm not asking you to give away all your secrets here, but what are some ways you would maybe encourage or inspire restaurateurs to collect emails?
By the way, I have no secrets. I will share everything with everybody because
that's
you know
awesome.
What? I'm 100% confident nobody will do it as good as we do. So that's fine. I'm happy to share it.
I love that.
The fastest, easiest, simplest, best, most scalable way to add emails to your database, other than take online orders or reservations. Restaurants already do that. Yeah. This is the one to add. Okay. 31% of the emails in my database for my restaurant were done this way, and it cost me $19 a month. That's peanuts. Okay.
Yeah, it's something.
Free gated Wi-Fi. Every single person that walks into your restaurant that is willing to be marketed to is happy to join your Wi-Fi. And if you make sure they have to give you their email address to get to it, you will grow your database in unbelievable. We, on average, at the burger shop, add 10 people a day to our database.
Wow.
Okay. Now, here's the thing. Most people that walk into a restaurant are an unknown. They walk in off the street. They either go to the maitre d' and get sat at the table, or they go to the bar. They order from the cash register. And there's no exchange of data there.
Right.
Right. Or let's say that we go to a restaurant and there's 4 of us and I make the reservation. I'm the known, but you and the other 2 people aren't. How do I get your Wi-Fi? I'm telling you, there's a company called Viva Spot. There's lots of companies you can use. I use Viva Spot because A, it's $19 a month. B, it works. And C, and I can't believe this is the case, they're the only gated Wi-Fi provider for restaurants that has a direct integration into MailChimp. And if I can automate a process, I will.
I'm a fan of automation too. Okay, that's awesome to hear, because I know there's solutions out there, but it's always good to get tactical, because that's the other battle sometimes. And like, for people listening, do your research, feel free to find a tool, but when there's a tool recommended by someone using it, that's always helpful, because it does take a lot of time to find the right tools, right? It's like,
I think about it this way, if you're a full service restaurant and you take reservations, great. You have a reservation system. That's an awesome way to add emails. Right. If you're a QSR, fast casual, online ordering, app ordering, again, same thing. But if you're like a bar, like nobody has to make a reservation at a bar. Nobody orders online. They just walk up to it, like, man, that's like a business full of unknowns. For sure, I would get Wi-Fi there, because that's the other thing too, is people sit in a bar longer. And at some point they're going to get on their phone and they want to get on Snapchat or Instagram or TikTok, or they want to like free gated Wi-Fi, man. 19
love
bucks a
that.
month through Viva Spot.
Amazing feedback. People listening, I think, are already going to be Googling these tools, the listing tool you mentioned. This is awesome.
I'll give you one more tool that I think is unbelievable.
Please do.
Okay, there's this brand new, jump on this because nobody's on this yet. It's called Guru Club, okay? And what Guru Club does is it gets you word of mouth from your current guests by turning every single guest into a social media influencer, okay? Here's how it works. Me, Rev, who actually is an influencer. Let's say it's not me. It's somebody else. It's my friend. It's my friend Amy, who's not an influencer.
Okay.
Walks into your restaurant and has ordered food, and she takes a picture of the food, which everybody does now. There's a little sign there that says, "Tag us on Instagram for $5 off your next order."
Mm.
Okay. Now, if Amy takes a picture of her food and puts it up on her Instagram and tags your account, she's now shared it with all of her followers. Okay. Oh my God, I love this burger. 3.5 seconds later, Instagram DMs her and sends her a coupon for $5 off her order. Now, if she's already ordered and it's a quick serve restaurant, she can use it on the next order. But let's say it's a fine dining restaurant where it's kind of hard to do all that stuff. You could have your server go over and go, "Hey, hint guys, if you take a picture of that amazing steak I just put in front of you, or that, hen of the woods, or whatever, amazing pasta dish, like, hey, you guys want me to do the cheese pull for me? By the way, get your cameras out, tag us on social. You can get $5 off this meal while you're here." Every single person at that table is going to take out their phone, take a picture of the pasta pull, and put it. And all of a sudden, 5 people who are in the restaurant right there just promoted you to all their friends, and all you had to do is give them $5. You'll
That's
do
amazing.
it all day long, man. Guru Club. It's the
Guru
only influencer technology I've seen out there that is easy to use and works.
I love that because you often see restaurateurs. I'm more focused always on the back of house. So really, WISK, we help with cost of goods sold and all that. But one of the main complaints I was, super important. But one of the main complaints I always hear from restaurants is, if we only had more people come through the door, if we only had more traffic, like everything else is perfect, which often it's not perfect when we see the numbers in the P&L. But they always assume everything's perfect, except it's just getting more traffic in the door. And so I love what you're saying. What about when it comes to what are maybe some other tactics? And I'm thinking maybe on social. So you mentioned you touched a bit on retention, but when it comes to social, what platforms do you typically recommend people are on, and what type of content? Because I feel sometimes from my conversations with restaurateurs, they lack maybe the ideas of what should I post? Is your solution just finding someone to do it for you, or do you have any thoughts that you can share of how maybe they can, to quote your buddy Sean Walchef, how they can become the show, not the commercial? But any kind of words of wisdom around that?
Well, don't do what I do, because I will make it look harder. I don't know if you're following along at Handcraft Burgers and Brew. We just hired one of Santa's elves to work for us.
Oh, I didn't see that.
We have a content series of all the things that happened when we hired one of Santa's elves.
That's awesome.
I'm going to make it look a lot harder. So don't do what I do, or inspire to do what I do. But look, first of all, you're right. If you don't have the skill set and you're not going to learn the skill set, and it doesn't make sense for you to learn the skill set, get somebody else. 100% get somebody else who's really good. For sure, get somebody else. But I think it's good to understand it so that you can give direction, right? And so even if you're not going to do it, you kind of have to understand some of the mechanics so you can be better at giving direction to the person that's going to do it.
This is a differentiator, man. And I realized that a lot of people weren't placing enough value on their personality, their connection to community, how they started this business. Like Nike. I don't know if you ever read the book about Phil Knight with Nike Shoe Dog.
Yeah.
But we all know what Nike is today.
Right.
We would never imagine some dude was broke as could be driving around the high school track meets selling shoes out of the back of his trunk to pay for dinner that night. Now that we know that, it's hard to connect because Nike is a $1 billion company.
Right.
But almost every local restaurant has that exact story. And I remember one restaurant in particular that I came across in one of these conversations. And they're telling me this crazy story how their mom and dad came over from Italy on this little rinky-dink boat. They showed me a picture of it. They're 1 and 2 years old in this picture. They're now 70. And that was 3 sentences and a blurry picture on their website. I said, so let me get this right. The restaurant was started by your parents. It's named after your parents. The recipes are named after your family. And yet the homage you pay to that is 3 lame-ass sentences and a blurry picture. And they're like, so that was a start of it, was I was like, okay, somebody's got to tell these stories. And so I started doing them with my phone. I'd take my iPhone out, put it on a tripod. We'd go live on the restaurant's Facebook page. And I'd say, hey, you don't know who I am. I'm Matt Plapp. I'm a restaurant marketing consultant. I've written a few books, but who cares about that? Let's talk about this guy. Have you heard how he started this restaurant? It's crazy. I'm going to turn it to him. Tell me. And that was kind of the start. And then at that point, I started to see how well those were working. And I thought, well, my lame video just got all this attention for this restaurant, and they didn't really do anything on their Facebook page because all they do is puke their food on people. So then I looked at the next thing. I said, okay, how could I leverage this to build a business? And I said, okay, where's the number one place that has consumers' attention? It's Yelp back then. And then number 2, what is the other place that has a lot of attention? It was diners, drive-ins, and dives and shows like that on cable. Okay. Well, cable's dying. Like I knew that 10 years ago. It's put a fork in it now. It's done. If it wasn't for the pharmaceutical industry and 90-year-old people still watching, it'd be done.
Right.
But then you look at Yelp, and Yelp did not have the friendships with the restaurants because it's not a relationship they liked because they didn't control the reviews. At least couldn't get bad ones removed that were wrong or inaccurate, and they couldn't control the narrative of the pictures. And so I said, what if we created a media company that, number one, started with the restaurant owner's story and their side of it on display. And then number 2, we didn't take it to cable, but we took it to where people are, Facebook. And so I created America's Best Restaurants. I bought the .net back then. We didn't have any damn money. And I started doing some generic stuff with it. By 2021, I realized that we had to go to a new level. Since then, like the budget right now for next year is $4.5 million. So it's not cheap. It's 30 or so employees on that team. And we will film at ballpark 800 restaurants next year. And the idea...
In 1 year?
Yeah, 1 year. Yeah.
Okay, so just to repeat that for people listening, 800 restaurants, because you said that subtly. So 800 restaurants in 1 year. Wow.
We're at 4 today. Like if I go to my calendar right now, I'll go to my other screen, I'll go to Van 1, Van 2. We are in the Point Restaurant in Sweet Home, Oregon. We are in Dungan Store in Monticello, Kentucky. Wow. We are in Bedrocks on the Bay in Winchester Bay, Oregon. I lied. We're at 3 restaurants today. So we're typically at 3 to 4 a day, Monday through Friday. And we're constantly evolving that. But the idea behind that was I want to do, we personally vet the restaurants. Yep. It's a paid marketing program if you're accepted into it, because it's not every restaurant. Right. Because not every restaurant is a place I would eat at every week. That was the ground level of this. I want to highlight restaurants Matt Plapp would take his wife and kids to every week. Sometimes that's a badass burger joint. Sometimes that's a high-end steakhouse. Cool. But if it's locally owned and operated, independently owned, there's no corporation, it's not a big chain or a franchise. That was the basis. And then we built up from there 10 points of they have to check off these 10 boxes. And if they check off 7 of the 10, that's fine. 5 of the 10, we got a problem. But we tell them, hey, we think your restaurant's cool, but look at your bathrooms. Like, have you updated that in like 20 years, my guy? Like, we want to be a place that I would come in if I was a young Matt Plapp, my kids were in diapers, and I would still want to come change them in that restroom and not feel like I was going to get hepatitis. So, we do run across that. But that was the vision. And so we started doing that with 5 of us. We had myself, my marketing director, my COO, one of my sales guys, and then one of my office assistant. And I bought a Mercedes Sprinter van. We packed it up. We drove it from Chicago and back. We filmed at 5 restaurants. And then at that point, took it to Florida, had it wrapped, took it to Naples, Florida, and drove from Naples, Florida to the UP in Michigan and filmed at like 300 restaurants in 6 months. It was 348 restaurants. And that was in 2021. And that was for free. We spent close to $2 million to just figure out. And I was not smart enough to know that we probably shouldn't have done that. But you look back and you don't really watch the account too closely some days. And you look back, oh man, go figure. We got 8 people flying to New York and back. Okay, that cost this much money. But we got to 2022. We analyzed what we did right, what we did wrong, and we've been tweaking it ever since. And so my ultimate vision with America's Best Restaurants, and if you go to mattplapp.live/VV, you can see our vision. I don't know if you've ever seen a Vivid Vision or not, but Vivid Vision is a book that you write out 3 years where you're going to be. And so there's an entire vision of our headquarters I want to have in 3 years, but this is the part on America's Best Restaurants on what I envision that brand being. And I envision it being a mouthpiece for the independent restaurants And then we debut all of the stuff we do for these restaurants on their Facebook page so that they can get the exposure on their channel, not some cable channel.
Really cool.
Really quickly, Driver is a restaurant marketing platform that we've always done really well at Facebook ads and Instagram ads to get somebody to say, I want a free burger. And then we can drive one out of those 3 people that raise their hand into the restaurant within 2 weeks. Well, a year ago, I bought a platform, a software that we could tie into it so we can connect with point of sales and help restaurants have a better customer journey based on the consumer using or not using the restaurant on a consistent basis. In our building, we teach our team, we want to help restaurants aim and expect that if somebody walks in your restaurant, be hospitable, have a conversation with them, find a way to get their information. Like I keep this on my desk, this growler, it's got money in it. I'm like, if I'm a restaurant and I sell beer growlers, I'm gonna have a growler with a QR code in the back. And when people walk in, I'm gonna say, hey, you want to win $100 cash? Hell yeah. Do me a favor, scan this QR code. It's going to take you to a Facebook post. Guess how much money is in that jar? And when you do it, it's going to ask you some questions in Messenger. You can enter the competition and somebody's going to win $100. Well, now you just got them to have a little fun. They went to Facebook. They engaged with your post. If you have it hooked up correctly to Messenger, you can now get their email and their phone number, pop them into whatever marketing platform you use. Yeah. And now you have a database you can aim at and you can expect an outcome. Because what we have seen is that if you have an offer that is high value, that doesn't suck, so one that they say people would feel stupid saying no to. So if you got a Facebook post that says, Angelo, do you want a free cheeseburger? Click below to get it. Okay, who doesn't want a free cheeseburger? So I was looking for ideas on marketing restaurants, and there was nothing out there. And the stuff I found was so generic. I'm not a big fan of reach and impressions. Yes, I understand if I do a Facebook ad right now, I could turn it on tomorrow for a restaurant and a month, probably reach 30,000 people, have 60,000 impressions. Who cares? I want to see engagements. I want to see engagements that led to data. I want to see data that led to sales. And so I was trying to find tools like that to sharpen my own saw, and they weren't out there. And so then I started thinking about it, and I was telling different restaurants, and one of the restaurants like, point me in the right direction. I'm like, well, there's really nothing. And so I came up with the idea of writing a book. And the way it came about was I was at a conference, and I watched a guy at the conference out in San Diego called Traffic and Conversions on how to write a book. And afterwards, I talked to him, and I said, hey, he had this idea. Put in the middle of the bullseye, write the end goal. What do you want this book to help restaurant owners do? Like, number one, who's it helping? Number two, what's it helping them do? Restaurant owners, put butts in seats. Okay. How do you do that? I'm like, well, I do this, this, and this. And he's like, okay, let me ask you a question. Do you have a system? It sounds like you have like a factory goal. Like, yeah, we pump hundreds of restaurant marketing campaigns out. And he's like, what do you use to build them? Like, we use a product called Asana that I can hire an employee and go, hey, you're in charge of this. They go to Asana. There's an SOP. It's like, do this, do this, do this. He goes, there's your book. Every chapter is your Asana build. I'm like, holy crap. I pulled up Asana and I'm like, this is what you do. So I wrote it out and said, if I was a restaurant owner, here's what I would do. Here's how you create your ad. Here's how you create your call to action. Here's how you create the messenger flow. Here's how you create the email follow-up. And it had all the stuff in there. Now, I also did it with kind of a bias here, maybe. I knew that what I was saying in the book was really, really technical. And so in the book, there was call to actions for people to go online and join a training and get some downloads. And I knew that 9 out of 10 restaurants should, in their right mind, read the book and then go, I'm not doing that stuff. I don't know how to use that software. Right. I don't know how to use Zapier and Twilio. Right. And so I knew that there was going to be inherent people that took the route differently. So then the second version of that book was Sell More Slices. I wrote another version of it. I was speaking at a conference in Austin, Texas for a company called ManyChat. It was like the first ever Facebook Messenger conference.
Yeah. ManyChats, we use them.
Yeah. And so I spoke there at that conference. We were the first ever person to use it, like for restaurants at a high level.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Hundreds of restaurant owners. And so I redid the book called Sell More Slices. It was geared around pizza restaurants because at that point we had probably worked with about 100 pizza restaurants. Okay. And we had some case studies like, there's no doubting this. And then the last book I wrote I was writing it the year before the pandemic hit. I was almost going to be done in April of 2020. And it was called Restaurant Marketing That Works, Back to the Basics. And the idea was around everything I preach. Well, then the pandemic came. We ended up publishing it that August, I think. And my publisher called me and said, hey, should we change the name of this because COVID hit, the pandemic? What changed with your marketing? I said, nothing. And so we changed the subtitle from Back to the Basics to Before, During, and After the Pandemic, because everything in the book is what worked before, it worked during, it's worked after. There was no solution. The only thing that anybody changed during the pandemic that probably helped them was online ordering. Everything else was the basics of, how to run a marketing campaign.
What are some of the best things that I've learned over that? That's where this book came from. So when you ask that question, what is something that is actionable? The first thing that comes to mind is key number 2. And key number 2 is the owner-like orientation. And the actionable step in that, I have to first talk through what we do wrong within our industry. We do orientation wrong. And what I mean by that, typically, whenever you do orientation, you set up your table, you put down your hat, you have apron, maybe some T-shirts, some pieces of paper and a pen. They come in, shake their hand. Do you want something to drink? They then come over, and then the scribe just starts going. And then I'll pause there. Have you ever noticed how the table you do orientation at somehow ends up being your new hire's break table? Whenever operators really think back, like the table that I typically sit them down at ends up being their new break table. That's part of the first cycle of the things that we bring them into. We can't hire 5s these days. You can't say, I'm going to log into whatever portal, whether it's Indeed or whatever that you may use, or even just a piece of paper for the ones that still use paper, and say, I'm screening for only 5s. That is something that for right now is long gone. You definitely have to screen for 3s and make your training better. And making training better is the key to where a lot of the labor issues are right now. And training isn't just something that is allotted for 7 days or even 14 days. When you think about how you train, you are training through the interview. You are using base questions to get them to understand what it's like to be working in your 4 walls or with your team. The third level is it must get done, but this can be put off until a different time. If you notice, all 3 are, it still must get done. That means that if it's on your list, yes, it must get done. Now it's then saying, out of all my items, let me figure out what the admin level is truly, and what that priority level is. And then you're now looking at what things you have to do and you have to do first. And then what things can you then pass off if you chose to. You know what? It's funny. I was listening to a podcast, and this chef goes to this new dishwasher and says, I want you to peel half this bag of carrots. I'll be right back. So he walks off, and then like 3 hours later, one of his sous chefs comes into his office just laughing, ha, 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 ha. And then he's like, what's so funny? And then he goes, go look. He walks out there, walks into the cooler, and the dishwasher took every carrot and peeled half the carrot and then put it back inside the bag. So it goes to just what you said of there's times that we think something is done. We say something. We don't give the right instructions, nor do we have the right follow-up. And you hit a key on the head of that follow-up of, yes, just because it is now created, now we have to figure out how can we make it better. It's just like you order a iPhone 15 Pro today. It is the newest, greatest thing. As soon as you unwrap that cellophane, pull that 2 pieces of paper, take the box out, press the button, the first thing it does is it updates. Now you think this is the newest, best piece of tech, but yet still the first thing it does is a software update. Nothing is ever really, truly done. There is always a follow-up. There is a making things better. There is the feedback. So you are absolutely spot on, even when it comes to creating mini systems, delegating, and then creating mini GMs. It's not just, I taught you, hands are washed, I'm done. No. there is now making it better as well. Now, the customer is the opposite of the operator. They're pulling up and they're looking to see, is the grass overgrown? Is there trash in the parking lot? Does it look like that it's open? Because during COVID, now when they walk up to the door, they're looking through the little slit to make sure it doesn't look locked, because they don't want to pull it and pull their arm out the socket because they've done it one too many times. So they pull the door open and like, oh, the dining room's open. Oh my gosh, thank you. I'm tired of eating out of a bag on my dashboard. So then they walk in. Life is great. They are slowed down. Their iris opens because it's dimmer. They have the seat, and then they're seeing more. And that's where the gap is.
If you want to learn more about WISK, head to wisk.ai and book a demo.